very much for joining us today. We just want to run through a few questions as to your thoughts on the relationship between PR and journalists and where you see it going. So I want to start by asking, firstly, which companies and technologies you see as the hottest for 2011 and why?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think Twitter is still growing. I think that what's really interesting, though, in terms of more general technologies, is location-aware technologies. I think we're reaching a sort of tipping point with smartphones now, so that people are much more attuned to broadcasting where they are. I mean, a year or two ago, when we talked about Google Latitude, people were very scared of broadcasting their location, and I think that now people are getting used to it in the context of things like Foursquare has got people used to saying, I'm in a location, are any of my friends here? And so that is now going to start leading on to other applications, you know, around advertising and within the media. Certainly now that Facebook Places has started taking off, and you know, you've got 500 million users there.
Okay, thank you. Moving on now to PR specifically, thinking about the PR gaffes, what are the biggest PR mistakes that you see made that you know have particularly stood out? What mistakes do you think are commonly made?
I think my favourite of the past year was probably the Vodafone Twitter page. You know, somebody leaving the corporate Twitter account open, and then somebody broadcasting some sort of homophobic comments on there, and then Vodafone having to spend you know, days backpedaling from that. So you know, although they've shown a lot of foresight in trying to enter into that market and use Twitter to reach out to their customers, I guess they hadn't put enough procedures around how they actually do that. So you know, that was probably one of the biggest gaffes. I mean, in terms of the things I see on a day-to-day basis, you know, people sending me a 4-page press release and then me complaining, and then you know, reducing it by half a page and sending it again. You know, those are the sort of things just on a day-to-day basis that are quite annoying.
So thinking about that, do you think the press release has got any future in PR? Do you think its time is over, or does it still have a relevance?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously companies still want a way to make announcements, but there's no longer this. There's nothing special about it anymore. You know, what annoys me more than anything is seeing a press release come through and it's embargoed for 1 week from now. You know, these sort of things don't really apply. You know, I don't think so. Not anymore in this sort of environment where you know, as soon as you understand a piece of news is coming from a company, the moment that you tell somebody, I have over 3,000 followers on Twitter, so you know, that will get multiplied out very quickly. And I think that, you know, modern PR is much more about the relationships with the journalists, and rather than having a long list of people you send out a release to, it's about knowing, you know, who's the right people who might be interested in this.
Sure. So thinking about that, what are the major changes, do you think, in the way that agencies and journalists and vendors work together, and how do you see that changing in the future?
Well, I mean, a good example, I went into one of the large international PR agencies this week, and they've just hired a guy who wrote for a national broadsheet newspaper in the UK, and they've given him a director's role and pretty much told him to invent his own job. He's sort of sitting somewhere between press and PR, and there's this sort of this ground in the middle. And he said to me, a good example is something like Manchester United Television. You know, it's their own content, it's promoting their own product, but there's a lot of people out there who will consume that kind of content. So I think that certainly there is that sort of third way. It's almost content about the media industry itself, as well as the PR being, I suppose, a lot more intelligent, interactive, and much more focused on industries. You know, so instead of the you know, the very young graduates who have no knowledge of an industry just ringing up saying, will you come to this event? You know, do you want some free drinks? Much more around knowing the journalists and having a relationship with them.
And any other thoughts on the way you see the relationships evolving over the future in the next 12 months or so?
Well, I think, I mean, you know, Twitter and online tools like that are a really good example of how it is completely changing. You know, I spoke a few days ago to a company was asking me how on earth can they use Twitter because they're a B2B firm. They haven't got a product that they need to tell consumers about. And I said to them, well, look, you're in the IT services market. Every day there's people out there like Charles Arthur at The Guardian who put out messages saying, today I'm writing about this subject. So obviously, if you're in that kind of market, you want to watch those journalists, those analysts, and you can have a direct one-to-one relationship. And you could say, hey Charles, we do that kind of stuff. Do you want to talk to our chief executive? And whether that's, the internal marketing or the agency doing it for them, it doesn't really matter. But it's about much more building a relationship. And and what was funny in that example, I blogged about that, saying, I went to this company today. They really didn't know what was going on. Then Charles Arthur wrote back to me. He put a comment on my blog saying, it's really interesting that you say that because I really value good PRs coming to me with good information and not the bog standard release.
Mark, thank you very much. That's been very useful.
Great,
Thanks very much for your time.